Hello, and welcome to American Pronunciation of English, Lesson 1. And today I just want to start by asking you some questions. Before you actually listen to my answers, it would be really helpful and probably good for you to take some time and turn off this video and answer these questions. The questions will be on the first page of the PowerPoint that I will provide, as well as on the first page of the lesson little booklet that you can print out for yourself. These questions will help you think about pronunciation and your process, and then when I give you some information about that process, hopefully it will make it easier for you to understand what you need to do in order to make your pronunciation of English better. First, I want to make sure you understand this will be American English pronunciation. So if you are seeking or used to British English or Australian English or English from some other part of the world, there will be some differences. So important to keep in mind. Okay, so first, why do you think second language learners do not usually sound like native speakers, even if they have been speaking English for a very long time or whatever language they're learning? And there are some really primary reasons why this is true. First, babies begin to actually listen to the sounds of their native language or languages as early as when they are actually conceived in the womb. Well, not that early, but when they are developing, because when their ears develop, they begin to actually hear sounds, and they will, even as newborns, be able to identify which sounds they're going to be using for their native language. So that's a really early kind of kick for them to be able to make good sounds. And of course that means that for people learning a second language, they don't have that start. Okay. Second, there are over 100 muscles used in pronunciation, given all your face muscles in addition to your tongue and all the way down into your lungs, everything that's used to pronounce sounds. So when you are very young, learning a language, it's like you are actually training those muscles to do the things they're supposed to do. And the older you get, the harder it is to retrain those muscles. So I kind of talk about it being like skiing for me, because my husband learned to ski when he was very young. And even if he goes a while without skiing, he can get out and he just moves the way he's supposed to move. And yes, it takes him a couple hours, maybe a day to get back in the groove, but he can do it. Versus I tried to learn when I was in my early 30s, and it just was not natural for me. And I had to work very hard at it, and I'm still just not good. So it's kind of like that, where when you learn your first language or languages, all of your muscles are trained and your ears are trained to do the right thing, and it's harder as you get older to retrain them. And last, another primary reason for a lot of people having trouble understanding how to make good sounds in a second language is that many times if you are learning a second language in a different country that is not English speaking, then your teacher or teachers are also not native speakers. So the sounds that you are hearing are not as close to native speech as they could be. So your models that you hear are not providing the exact same information or sounds that a native speaker would provide. So those are really important reasons why to think about. It's difficult for second language learners to pronounce English in the same way as native speakers. Second question, what sounds do you have trouble pronouncing? Okay, typically there are a couple of sounds that are problems for most people learning English. One is TH, and mainly that's because it's not found in many other languages. So TH is a common problem for almost everyone learning English, but there are other problems that also exist for almost everyone, and then there are problems that it may exist for you only because of your native language and the sounds that you have in that native language. So that's typically true. How do you pronounce these sounds, and why do you think this happens? Typically, you will take a sound like TH, and because it is not familiar or common for you in your language, you replace that sound with a sound that is the closest sound in the mouth to the TH sound. So for most people, if you have a th sound, you will end up either saying a s sound or a t sound, because the TH is right between the teeth, and the S and the T sound are just behind the front teeth on top. So it's a very close sound in the mouth, and that's typically what most people do. So in order to actually make a difference, what do you think you can do to change this? What must you do? You have to retrain both of your ears and your muscles and your production of sound. So there's two things that are essential. You need to begin practicing, listening very carefully to the difference between the sound that you need to learn and the sound that you're making. And so identifying which sound is being produced is the first step, so that you hear the difference and start being acquainted or understand that difference. And then second, you need to train those muscles and train them very carefully to produce the difference between those sounds, so that you know you're pronouncing the sound the way it needs to be pronounced. In order to do that, you need to first isolate, make that sound by itself. And what I will be teaching in my lessons is how you need to put your mouth and how you need to be very careful about placement of your tongue, and if you're using your vocal cords to produce the sound, etc., in order to make that sound correctly. After you are very clear about how to make this individual sound, then you want to put that sound in what we call a minimal pair, 2 words, where the only difference in those 2 words is the sound you're targeting and the sound that you usually make. So for example, think and sink, or tink. If you are likely to use the S or the T, you choose one of those plus the word with TH, and you put them together, but only when you can really think about how you're putting your mouth in making those sounds. So you want to say think, sink, or think, tink very carefully in order to make sure that you're training those muscles and hearing the difference. And you have to do that often in order to make that something that your brain actually begins to learn and your muscles begin to learn. Okay? So the last major really important question about learning pronunciation for everyone is, what level of pronunciation do you wish to master? Okay? How far do you want to sound like a native speaker? Do you want to be exactly so no one can tell a difference? Are you comfortable with an accent, but as long as people can understand you, that's fine? Are you comfortable with an accent that sometimes might be difficult for some people to understand, but that's fine? So there are some different levels of goal that you need to think about, and none of them is wrong. You have to think for yourself about what's best or most appropriate for you and how you use English. Okay, so that's the beginning of our lesson for today. The following lessons will tell you more about specific individual sounds and how to actually make those correctly and practice those.